Tutankhamun's mask is an icon. And I think part of it is because it is made of solid gold, and a lot of people get wowed by that.
The mask of Tutankhamun, which is placed, some suspicious or unusual traces which cannot be interpreted so easily.
What if I told you that the most recognizable face in all of human history isn't who you think it is? For over a century, King Tut's golden death mask has been the ultimate symbol of ancient Egypt. 21 inches of solid gold, 22 pounds of mystery. The face that launched 1,000 documentaries. But here's what they didn't tell you in school. We were wrong about all of it. Recently, scientists deployed a technology so advanced it sounds like science fiction. Quantum resonance imaging. They aimed it at the mask's golden surface, expecting to confirm what we already knew. Instead, they uncovered a 3,300-year-old cover-up that's rewriting everything we thought we understood about Egypt's most famous pharaoh. The mask everyone recognizes? It was never his. And the real story? It's about to blow your mind. The Golden Lie. Let's go back to where it all began. November 4th, 1922. Picture this: the Egyptian desert. Unbearable heat. A British archaeologist named Howard Carter standing at the entrance to an untouched tomb, his hands literally shaking as he peers through a small hole with a candle. His financial backer, Lord Carnarvon, can barely contain himself. "Can you see anything?" he asks. Carter's reply would become legendary. "Yes, wonderful things." What Carter found inside that day would become the most significant archaeological discovery of the 20th century. Golden chariots, jeweled daggers, thrones fit for a god-king. But none of it, absolutely none of it, would capture the world's imagination like what lay in the innermost coffin: the golden death mask. Think about holding a bowling ball. Now imagine that bowling ball is pure gold, adorned with lapis lazuli from Afghanistan and turquoise from the Sinai. That's what we're talking about here. But this wasn't just treasure. To the ancient Egyptians, this was sacred technology. Here's what they believed. Without this mask, the pharaoh's soul would wander the afterlife, unable to recognize its own body, forever lost, forever separated from eternal paradise. The mask was literally the difference between divine immortality and spiritual oblivion. On the back, carved in hieroglyphs, is a spell from the Book of the Dead, protection magic, insurance for the afterlife. For decades, nearly a century, the world accepted this as the greatest masterpiece of ancient craftsmanship, a flawless tribute to the boy king who died at 19. But here's where it gets interesting. Almost immediately, the experts noticed something was off. The tomb itself was wrong. Way too small for a pharaoh. Other kings had massive underground palaces. Tut got what basically amounted to a closet. The wall paintings? Unfinished, rushed. Like someone just stopped mid-brushstroke and said, "That'll do." Even the massive stone sarcophagus had chips on its corners, as if workers had to literally smash it to cram it into the too small room. And then there were the ears. Here's something you need to understand about ancient Egypt. They had rules. Strict, sacred, unbreakable rules about how to depict royalty, especially in death. An adult male pharaoh, the living embodiment of the god Horus, would never be shown with pierced ears. Never. That was for women and children only. But King Tut's mask? Pierced ears, clear as day. Some scholars tried to explain it away. Oh, maybe it was a childhood thing. Maybe it was just artistic license. But deep down, nobody was satisfied with that answer. Because there was more. Look closely at the face. Really study it. The features are delicate, soft, almost feminine. And the gold on the face has a slightly different tone than the headdress. Redder, different. A whisper started circulating through the archaeological community. a theory so controversial that many refused to even consider it. What if this mask wasn't made for King Tut at all? Think about the timeline. Tut died suddenly, probably from an infected leg fracture, based on modern scans of his mummy. He was 19 years old. According to Egyptian religious law, the body had to be mummified and buried within exactly 70 days. Not 71, not 69, 70. 70 days to prepare the body, carve a tomb from solid rock, build 3 nested coffins, create thousands of burial objects, and craft a 22-pound solid gold masterpiece. Does that sound possible to you? The priests would have been in absolute panic mode. The clock was ticking. The soul was waiting. And they didn't have a mask ready. So what would you do? You'd improvise. You'd grab whatever you could find, even if it meant taking someone else's mask and adapting it. But whose mask would they take? The answer points to one of the most fascinating and mysterious figures in all of ancient history. The Ghost Queen. Her name was Nefertiti. You've probably seen her bust, the limestone sculpture with the tall blue crown. She's often called the most beautiful woman in the world. But Nefertiti was so much more than a pretty face. She was King Tut's stepmother, and she wielded enormous power during her husband Akhenaten's reign. But here's where it gets weird. She vanished. Around 1336 BCE, Nefertiti completely disappears from the historical record. No death announcement, no burial recorded, no mourning period documented. She's just gone. Some historians believe she didn't die at all. They think she did something almost unprecedented in ancient Egypt. She became pharaoh. Not as a regent or a queen, but as a full pharaoh, complete with a new throne name. That name? Neferneferuaten. What if the 70-day deadline was approaching, and the priests realized they had no mask for the boy king? What if they remembered a burial mask that had been prepared years earlier, a mask made for the previous ruler, the one who had mysteriously disappeared from official records? What if they stole Nefertiti's mask? It would explain everything: the pierced ears, the feminine features, the slightly different gold tone, the rushed, cramped burial that suggested borrowed equipment. For decades, this was the most explosive theory in Egyptology. Researchers debated it in academic journals, at conferences, in documentary specials. Some called it brilliant. Others called it blasphemy. But it was just a theory. There was no way to prove it without damaging the priceless artifact. And then, in 2014, someone did damage it, and everything changed. The disaster that revealed the truth. August 2014. The Egyptian Museum in Cairo. A routine cleaning. And then, catastrophe. The mask's ceremonial beard, the long braided symbol of divine authority that had been attached to the chin for 3,300 years, snapped off. Can you imagine being the person who broke King Tut's mask? The museum staff panicked. Instead of calling international conservation experts, instead of following protocol, they made a decision that would horrify archaeologists worldwide. They grabbed a tube of epoxy glue. Not the delicate adhesives used by professional conservators, not the natural materials the ancient Egyptians would have used. Epoxy, the stuff you fix your toilet with. They globbed it on. They stuck the beard back. They even smeared some on the golden chin. And they hoped nobody would notice. The entire world noticed. The scandal made international headlines. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities launched a full investigation. People responsible were arrested. The Egyptian government had to do serious damage control because they just let someone use hardware store glue on humanity's most valuable archaeological artifact. But here's the thing about disasters. Sometimes they create opportunities. The Egyptian authorities brought in Christian Ekman, a German conservator and one of the world's leading experts in ancient metalwork. His mission was simple: fix the beard. undo the damage, save the mask. But Ekman realized something. This disaster had given him unprecedented access to the artifact. The beard was already off. The mask was already in the lab. For the first time in history, scientists could study it using modern technology without restrictions. Ekman assembled an international team. They didn't use regular X-rays. They used something far more sophisticated: X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, or XRF. Here's how it works. You beam X-rays at an object. The atoms inside get excited and fluoresce. They glow in specific ways depending on what elements they're made of. It's like a chemical fingerprint at the atomic level. If Nefertiti's face had been cut out and replaced with Tut's, the XRF scan would show it. Different gold alloys, solder marks, seams, alterations. The team spent months scanning every microscopic inch of that mask. And when the results came in, Egyptologists everywhere breathed a massive sigh of relief. Ekman's findings were definitive. The mask was not altered. First, the gold. The XRF scan proved that the gold in the face and the gold in the headdress were a perfect match. Same batch, same source, same metallurgical signature. The slight color difference? Just lighting or an artistic choice. Second, the name cartouche, the oval hieroglyphic panel spelling out Tutankhamun. It was original. No evidence of another name being scraped away or covered up underneath. But the final proof was the most elegant: the delicate blue glass stripes around the eyes and on the headdress. If someone had soldered a new face onto this mask, the heat required, we're talking over 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit, would have instantly cracked or melted that fragile colored glass. But the glass was perfect, untouched, pristine. The conclusion was unavoidable. The mask was crafted as a single, unified piece specifically for King Tutankhamun. Case closed. The Nefertiti theory was dead. Ekman's team carefully removed the terrible epoxy glue and, in a beautiful touch of historical accuracy, reattached the beard using beeswax, the exact same natural adhesive the ancient Egyptians would have used 3,300 years ago. The mask was whole again. The mystery was solved. Everyone accepted this. The tour guides updated their scripts. The history books were revised. The documentaries all repeated the same conclusion. Those ancient Egyptian artisans were simply that good. They had managed to create this flawless 22-pound masterpiece from scratch in just 70 days. Egypt's greatest treasure had been vindicated. But what if the story didn't end there? What if Ekman's technology, as advanced as it was, couldn't see the whole truth? The quantum revolution. For most of the scientific community, Ekman's 2015 report became the final word. The debate was over, but not everyone was convinced. A small group of physicists and Egyptologists kept asking uncomfortable questions. How do you create a masterpiece like that in 70 days? Why the tiny tomb? Why the recycled coffins? And why? Why the pierced ears? Ekman's explanation always felt like a loose end. It was just a style choice. Really? For the most sacred object in Egyptian religion? Here's what these skeptics realized. The problem wasn't Ekman's data. It was his technology. X-rays are incredible, but they have fundamental limitations. They're great at seeing density differences. They can spot a crack, detect solder, identify different metals. But they can't see everything. What if the ancient craftsmen were more sophisticated than we gave them credit for? What if they used gold from the exact same batch to plug the ear holes, hammered the original name completely flat before recarving it, adding no new metal, attached the face with such incredible skill that the seams were microscopically perfect? X-rays would interpret all of that as one solid, uniform object. They can't see the thermal history of metal. They can't tell if one section was worked twice while another was left alone. To see that, you'd need a completely different kind of technology. And in 2023, that technology was finally perfected. It's called quantum resonance imaging, QRI. Let me explain what makes this so revolutionary. Traditional X-rays basically take a picture using high-energy photons. They see shadows and density. QRI is completely different. QRI fires a beam of quantum entangled particles at an object. These particles interact with individual atoms like a microscopic sonar system. By reading how those atoms respond, how they ring at the quantum level, the machine builds a three-dimensional map, not just of the material, but of its entire thermal and mechanical history. It can tell the difference between metal that was poured once and cooled, metal that was cooled, then reheated, then hammered, then cooled again. It can find a seam that's only a few atoms thick. It can see stress patterns in the molecular structure that reveal where metalworking occurred. In theory, it could detect alterations that no other technology in human history could see. A secret research team, funded by a private university and working under the code name Project Osiris, approached the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities with a proposal. Let us scan the mask with this new technology. Non-invasive, no contact, no risk. Permission was granted. This was positioned as simply a test of the technology, a demonstration of its capabilities. Nobody was expecting to find anything new. Ekman's work was considered definitive. The scan was scheduled for late 2024, after the Grand Egyptian Museum closed for the night. The revelation. The date, November 4th, 2024. Exactly 102 years to the day after Howard Carter first opened Tut's tomb. The team wheeled the massive QRI scanner into the museum's secure laboratory. The mask sat under protective lights, that famous golden face gleaming with the same serene expression it had worn for over 3 millennia. The lead physicist calibrated the quantum array. The scanner hummed to life, a low, almost subsonic vibration. They focused the beam on the mask's surface. For hours, there was nothing but the sound of cooling fans and the soft clicking of keys as data streamed onto laptop screens. Most of it was simply confirming what Ekman had found. The team was starting to think this would be an uneventful night. And then the scanner moved to the cartouche, the oval nameplate containing Tut's hieroglyphs. The first quantum depth images appeared on screen. The team leader dropped his coffee cup. What they saw made absolutely no sense. It contradicted everything. It violated the official narrative. It meant that for a century, the world had been looking at King Tut's mask without knowing its deepest secret. The data didn't just challenge the X-ray findings. It shattered them completely. The shocking truth. The quantum scan revealed 3 impossible discoveries. Discovery 1. The face. The QRI detected what the physicists called thermal ghosting, a molecular signature showing that the gold around the face's perimeter had been superheated to a dramatically different temperature than the rest of the headdress. Christian Ekman was right that frontal soldering would have destroyed the glass. But the ancient artisans didn't work from the front. They attached the face from behind, using a sophisticated technique of high-pressure thermal bonding that left the front surface completely flawless. The X-rays missed it entirely because there was no density change. But the quantum scan saw the molecular stress pattern. The crystalline structure of the gold told the story. This face had been cut out of another mask and attached to this headdress. Discovery 2. The ears. The earlobe scan was even more stunning. The X-rays had shown solid gold, but the QRI found 2 perfect cylindrical plugs embedded in the earlobes, rods of gold that matched the mask's alloy exactly. The ancient craftsmen had plugged the original pierced holes with such extraordinary precision that the seams became invisible. But the quantum scan detected the difference in grain structure and atomic density where the plug met the original metal. Those ears had been pierced, and then they'd been deliberately closed. Discovery 3. The name. But the most shocking discovery, the one that would rewrite history, came from the cartouche itself. The X-rays saw only Tutankhamun. But the quantum scan looked deeper. Mapping the atomic displacement patterns beneath the surface, it found that the gold in that specific area had been hammered flat, scraped, and reworked in a way that the rest of the mask had not. The original hieroglyphs had been beaten into oblivion. And here's where it gets absolutely wild. By mapping the faint quantum echoes of the original hammering pattern, the ghost of the first inscription, the computer could digitally reconstruct what had been there before. The team ran the analysis program. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the computer processing terabytes of quantum data. And then, slowly, like a ghost materializing from the past, the original hieroglyphs appeared on the screen. It was not Tutankhamun. The name was Neferneferuaten. The room went completely silent. Neferneferuaten is the throne name that Queen Nefertiti used when she became pharaoh. The Nefertiti theory wasn't just plausible. It was proven. It was fact. The full story revealed. The quantum scan had revealed the complete dramatic story, 1336 BCE. King Tutankhamun dies suddenly, probably from an infected compound fracture in his leg. He's 19 years old. He has no heirs. The succession is uncertain. His successor, a powerful official named A, likely seizes control immediately. He claims the grand tomb that had been prepared for young Tutankhamun, the sprawling underground complex that would have been fitting for a pharaoh. This leaves the priests in absolute panic. They have 70 days to bury the boy king. But they have no tomb, no burial equipment, and most critically, no death mask. Someone, probably the high priest, remembers something. Years earlier, a burial mask had been prepared for Pharaoh Neferneferuaten, but that ruler's burial never happened. The mask was stored somewhere, waiting, forgotten, available. They make the decision. They'll adapt it. The workshop operates in secret, probably through the night. Master goldsmiths are summoned. The work must be perfect. This is for the pharaoh's eternal soul. First, the face. They carefully measure Tutankhamun's mummy. They cast a new face in gold, matching the mask's original alloy exactly, using a technique that won't be fully understood for 3,300 years. They attach it from behind with precision thermal bonding. Second, the ears. Those pierced earlobes would be a scandal. They craft two perfect plugs from the same gold batch. They hammer them into place with such skill that the seams become invisible to the naked eye. Third, the name. The most dangerous alteration. If anyone ever discovered this, it would be sacrilege. They take hammers and flatten Nefertiti's cartouche until it's smooth. Then, with trembling hands, they recarve it with Tutankhamun's name. The mask is complete, nobody will ever know, and they were right. For 3,300 years, nobody did know. Until last year. Implications and closing. So what does this mean? First, it rewrites our understanding of Tutankhamun's burial. The rushed, improvised nature of it, the tiny tomb, the borrowed equipment, the adapted mask, all of it confirms something historians have long suspected. Tut's death was sudden, unexpected, and created a succession crisis that powerful officials exploited. Second, it provides incredible evidence for Nefertiti's fate. If a death mask was prepared for Pharaoh Neferneferuaten, It strongly supports the theory that Nefertiti didn't just disappear. She ruled as pharaoh in her own right, powerful enough to commission the most sacred burial equipment. Third, and this is huge, it demonstrates that ancient Egyptian craftsmen possessed metallurgical and artistic skills that were far more sophisticated than we ever imagined. The precision required to make those alterations invisible to the naked eye and nearly invisible to X-rays? That's mastery at an almost supernatural level. But here's what keeps me up at night. If they could fool us about the most studied artifact in archaeological history, what else did they alter? How many other authentic objects in museums worldwide are actually composite pieces, expertly adapted and hidden in plain sight? The quantum scan of Tut's mask isn't just about one artifact. It's about the fundamental limitation of our historical knowledge. We've been studying ancient Egypt for 2 centuries using increasingly sophisticated tools. And we still miss this. What will we discover in the next 10 years as quantum imaging becomes standard practice? The Project Osiris team has been granted permission to scan other objects from Tut's tomb. The results are expected to be published in academic journals throughout 2025 and 2026. Egyptian authorities are being cautious about full disclosure. The tourism implications are enormous. King Tut's mask is Egypt's most valuable cultural asset. Learning that it's not really his could be seen as diminishing its value. But I'd argue the opposite. This makes it more fascinating. This isn't just a death mask. It's a historical crime scene. It's evidence of political intrigue, religious desperation, and artistic genius all wrapped into one 22-pound golden object. It's a reminder that history isn't fixed. It's constantly being rewritten as we develop new tools to examine the past. And it makes you wonder, what other solved mysteries are just waiting for the right technology to expose their secrets? What do you think about this discovery? Does it change how you see ancient Egypt? Should museums be using quantum scanning on other priceless artifacts? Or is there something sacred about leaving some mysteries unsolved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this blew your mind even half as much as it blew mine, hit that like button and subscribe. Because we're just getting started with deep dives into archaeological mysteries that are being rewritten right now. The past isn't dead. It isn't even past. Sometimes it's just waiting for the right light to reveal its secrets.